We are actually attracting a lot of non-IITians into the system and integrating them, a social entrepreneur and award winner like VP, and now a medical doctor, Dr. Jangiani, and this kind of collaboration between the engineers and other professions is indeed very welcome. It's an honor to introduce Dr. Sunil Jangiani, who is a practicing doctor and one of America's top physicians on nutrition and gastroenterology. He has launched, in addition to being a practicing doctor, he has actually launched social enterprises such as the Nutrition Vista, a Geneva-based NGO. He's led missions to India, to Navi Mumbai, to deal with the healthcare issues for the slums there. And he's also the founder of Doctors for a Healthier Bronx. We are indeed very fortunate to have a speaker of his eminence join our panel. Sunil.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to just ask you to allow me to go back to early last week. And I had the opportunity to meet and speak with John Claude Mabania, who was the president of the American Diabetes Federation. And I met him at just in New York City. It was 2 blocks from here. And this was at a pre-United Nations conference on non-communicable diseases that was convened by Yeshiva University. And he told me of a story of his visit to Oslo. And the Minister of Health in Oslo tells him, "What are you doing here? You should be focusing your attention on Asia and Africa, and not in Oslo." So Mr. Mabania asked him, "What is the incidence of diabetes in an immigrant population from Pakistan in Oslo?" So the health minister says, "Very high." So Mr. Mabania asked him, "What is the incidence of maternal mortality in women from Pakistan who have obesity and diabetes?" To which Mr. Mabania also replies, "Very high." So ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the title and the timing of this global conference by the Pan IIT guys, it is absolutely amazing. The timing could not have been more perfect. Because just last week the United Nations completed their meeting on non-communicable diseases right here in New York City. And while it will take perhaps weeks or months for the United Nations to come out with their directives, allow me, if you will, to take you through what is the current picture when it comes to global health and wellness. Now before I do that, I would first like to, of course, thank you all for giving me this opportunity to come in front of you and speak about these issues. I'm thankful to Gulab Bhavnani, the organizers, for giving me a chance to talk about issues that are very important from a global perspective and which fit very well with the title of this conference, which is Solutions for a Better World. And of course, I'm thankful to our co-panelists, our distinguished moderator, Mr. Ramanan, for his kind introduction of who I am and how I could contribute, and I'm indeed deeply humbled. But let me tell you about, not a day goes by when we do not hear or read about the widening gaps between the rich and the poor, and the have and the have-nots in the world, and not just in the United States or India, but globally. And the same is true when it comes to global health and wellness. Because if you look today, our advances in pharmaceuticals, our advances in medicine have made it possible for us to live longer and healthier lives. Look at India. India since independence has doubled the life expectancy. If you look at the United States, well, before I go to the United States, India has 18 million people over the age of 65 today, which is the largest number in the world. And look at the number of people over the age of 85 in the United States. It's over 6 million, and that number is going to increase to at least 20 million by 2030. And when I look at all of you here, and everybody seems to be in the pink of health, I think we will probably be part of the statistic in 2050. But let me caution you, because I'm going to take a pause, and I'm sure you will take a pause too. Because even though this optimistic scenario is unraveling in the background of people living to, some experts are predicting that the first humans who will live to 200 may already have been born in the last few years. But there is a tsunami lurking in the background, the likes of which we humans have never seen before. Because today we are in the midst of an epidemic of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and chronic lung disease. And it's affecting every part of the globe, no matter what you say. These diseases do not obey any geopolitical boundaries. They spread rapidly because of the forces. They are driven mainly by urbanization, globalization, and an aging population. And what is driving these? It's the foolish lifestyle habits, ultimately, if you come to. And I'm glad the Pan-IIT movement decided to put a lifestyle panel right here, and the Wheels has lifestyle issues because that is driving. And what are the unhealthy habits? And we all know them. It's unhealthy diets, number one. Number two is insufficient physical activity. Number three is tobacco use. And number four is the harmful use of alcohol. And this is affecting every nook and cranny of the globe. There's not a single part of the world that is immune from these foolish lifestyle habits that we all tend to follow, and we get into trouble. Now, yesterday John Saxton, from the president of NYU, invoked Thomas Friedman, and he talked about it's a flat world, and this is a perfect example. And of course, Praful Kulkarni would probably call it a flat and hot world. And perhaps if you give me the permission, I'll call it a flat, hot, and unhealthy world. And that's where we have basically come to. So before I go into what exactly what we have done in India and what we are doing here in the US, I would like to talk about the 3 simplified priorities for better health in the 21st century. And these are basically quite simple. And what are these? All you have to do have simplified health risk assessments. Number 2, you need to prevent and reduce these risk factors. And number 3, you have to build strong healthcare systems. And the strong healthcare systems have to be tied to the IT community, the business community, and to the government sectors of the economy. So these 3 things are very important as we go forward. And now if you look at the problem of obesity, I think it is the root cause of all problems in the world today that is driving these diseases. And it doesn't have to be, again, an affluent country like the United States or Britain or something. It's happening even in sub-Saharan Africa today, and it's happening in India and all over. Because if you look at the work by Anup Mishra at the All India Institutes of Medical Sciences in Delhi, he found 70% of women in New Delhi are overweight or obese. And metabolic complications like diabetes and obesity and heart disease occur in Indians at a much lower body mass index than anywhere else. So what is happening is that we Indians, because of our abdominal type of obesity, where we tend to gather fat more on the belly, that the government has gone to the extent of lowering the threshold for obesity and overweight amongst Indians. And they are much lower than Western standards. And same has happened actually in Japan and other Asian countries, because we do not necessarily fall into the westernized pattern where these things were set almost 20 years ago. And the United Nations has also come forward with the guidelines that each country should have their own parameter for body mass index. Now, when I go to India, and this was a typical story I heard, and I'll share it with you. And this is Mumbai, and I absolutely love Mumbai. I was born and brought up there. And if you look at what is happening in Mumbai, and this could be in any part of Mumbai, you've got a well-heeled individual. Okay, and he is going in a chauffeur-driven Porsche. A chauffeur-driven Porsche. And he goes to the corner bookstore to pick up a book on healthy living. then he's driven in that car to the corner drugstore where he buys a nutritional supplement. And then he goes in that car to a local dhaba in search of what? In search of a low-calorie snack. And on the way in that chauffeur-driven car, he lights up a cigarette. Okay, so look at the scenario playing out. And that brings me to the next risk factor, which is tobacco use, which remains stubbornly high amongst all Indians. I mean, not all Indians, excuse me. It remains stubbornly high among people from the Indian subcontinent. Okay, and then on top of that, then he goes home and has a drink, he opens a bottle of Johnny Walker Red Label. Okay, and that is pretty high consumption in India too. So that is the fourth risk factor of alcohol use and the harmful use of alcohol, which is resulting in a number of deaths from cancer, cardiovascular disease, and of course cirrhosis of the liver. So here you got a problem which is brewing, and the last risk factor, of course, is the unhealthy diets. And if you put these three and put the fourth one of unhealthy diets, a consumer, a global consumer, doesn't have to be an Indian, doesn't have to be an American, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Today, food has become cheap, food has become fast, food is laden with additives, preservatives, and you name it, sugar, fat, and trans fats. Or salt consumption or sugar consumption is tremendous, and in India there's always an excuse. Arey Dasara hai, Diwali hai, and there is something or the other holy hai. So what is going on? Every Indian festival is driven by food and sugar-laden beverages. And that is causing a major problem nationwide. Okay, so now let's look at what we are doing in India. Now before I go into India, there's one thing that is very important. As the United Nations begins to send out its guidelines and the governments of India, the governments of 192 countries that were represented, begin to talk about their guidelines, how they're going to control communicable diseases. We in the civic sector can do something before the governments do anything, because we know how fast government works and we know how fast the priorities change. So we in the civic sector, we realize that all these problems are caused by what? They are caused by the way we work, the way we live, and the way we do business. And what we have to come up with, we have to come up with solutions that are civic-minded and take the whole society kind of approach, which my great co-panelist, Mr. Agarwal is doing and Praful Kulkarni is doing, and we need to take the whole civic and the society-minded approach to this problem. Otherwise, things will not change. I mean, it takes time for governments to make a move. So, what we did in India, and what we have Nutrition Vista, which is an online health and wellness company, and we have dietitians who are constantly online, and our biggest customer in India is actually GE, and we provide these services as a workplace wellness, and we go into the offices and provide employee wellness programs. So, and if you look at what we're doing in the Bronx, in an underprivileged thing, we have a non-for-profit doctor-driven 200-doctor network. And basically, we follow evidence-based guidelines. And these evidence-based guidelines are simple. What are these? These are very simple. Like I mentioned, the health risk assessments. We do preventive screening guidelines. We do nutrition and health education, nutrition and health counseling. We are constantly advocating that healthcare systems move from the curative to the preventive model. We want healthcare systems to move from the pay-as-you-go model to insurance-based models. And we are advocating that they move from specialty care to primary care and fully integrated models. And India today is actually a hotbed when it comes to private-public partnerships. And there's a lot of activity in that area, and there were a lot of discussions were held yesterday. And India today, along with Brazil, is the leader in generic medicines. And there are two things that are happening in India which are absolutely mind-boggling. India today has an amazing cervical cancer screening test coming out in probably a few months, which will challenge the tests that are being done in Western societies. And number two, India is coming out with a pill which combines three drugs: an antihypertensive, a cholesterol lowering agent, and aspirin, and which will cost pennies. and which can be distributed throughout the globe at amazing reduction of multiple risk factors at the same time just with one pill. And as somebody told me, Dr. Changani, all you need a pill from India is if you can put exercise in that pill.
Yes.
And that is a big problem. So ladies and gentlemen, as this conference begins to wind down, and I'm about to conclude, my feeling is that we are at the most challenging times in our existence on this earth. And it will, whether it's a financial system, a climate system, and healthcare system, all three appear to be in disarray. And if you were to ask my opinion, I don't think it will be a financial system or a climate system meltdown that will be the biggest threat to our global development. I think it will be the threat of the twin calamities and epidemics of obesity and diabetes. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity to come, to express my ideas, my concerns, and I must really say this has been a great conference. Thank you so much.
Sunil, your passion clearly shows in your talk. It has been a great presentation, and we definitely.
Anybody has questions?
Yeah, I actually had a.
That's what I was going to say. Please stay. Is there any questions here from the audience? Yes,
Actually, I
please.
had a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think partially the pill actually doesn't help, it actually hurts. Because we get it, the real issue is the lifestyle issue, okay? And pill just makes it easier for us to continue our lifestyle the same way.
I agree. I totally concur.
Unfortunately, this education.
This is actually very similar to the no-fault insurance, where they say that if you have that kind of an auto insurance, people tend to feel like they're more protected than they really are. I mean, that is the justification for the no-fault insurance. If you take your auto insurance, you really feel like, oh, I have insurance, I can do anything I want. You tend to be more reckless. Anyway, with that, Sunil, if you will hold our questions, we'll go ahead and... You have a question? Go ahead.
See, in India, primarily the nutrition of the family is completely dependent upon the woman of the family. Am I right? So how can we change the mindset of a woman to change the way the cooking is happening today? And this is where I tried. I was working for Maharashtra government, and I used to go to villages. It is extremely difficult. One is because of the party, whatever they have, they cook. Another thing is like the festivals and all. And another thing is the families have the tradition to cook certain thing in a certain way.
Right.
So these are the issues where how can we change these things to bring it to the the nutrition level up and.
Right. No, that's a great point, and we have found the same problem too. That's why nutrition education, health education is very important. But I'll tell you something about Maharashtra. Maharashtra is most progressive when it comes to an amazing network of how the talukas and how the villages and all are converted in Maharashtra. In fact, Maharashtra was written up, I think it was by the WHO about almost 15 years ago, of being one of the most progressive states at that time, and it still is among the top 3 for Tamil Nadu, Kerala and all, and of course now come remarkably when it comes to public health. But that's something maybe we can discuss during the Q&A. I'll come back to that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Let's give one more thing. And we do look forward to your ongoing association with the PANIT and how we can actually operate on the lifestyles panel. We now have, it's a normal cliche used last but not the least. Now that we've already had a social entrepreneur, an entrepreneur, and builder, and a doctor, it's about time we got somebody from the education arena. So we now have a professor, Professor Vijay Modi. He is an IIT alum, the professor of engineering and associated with the Earth Institute as well at Columbia University. He has had the privilege and definitely made us proud by being part of the UN Millennium Project, where he was involved in setting those Millennium Development Goals related to energy, and he currently serves on the United Nations Secretary's Task Force for Energy. With that, Vijay.
So it's going to be